Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Brandy Keeler. I am Assistant Director of Admissions at the College for Creative Studies here in Detroit. And welcome to another CCS Alumni Live. CCS Alumni Live is a weekly conversation where we talk with graduates from the College for Creative Studies about their journey from high school to career. Today, we have an amazing conversation planned with one of our graduates, so I'm going to go ahead read his bio while folks are joining the live, and then I will add him to the live so we can get started with today's conversation. So today we'll be talking with Matt Marrocco. 2009 CCS product design alum Matt Marrocco is an experienced industrial designer and founder focused on creating thoughtful, meaningful, and authentic product experiences for human beings interacting with the world around them. Matt has professional experience spanning connected products, housewares, medical, brand identity, and industrial equipment. Matt is currently working at the intersection of consumer tech and automotive design here in Detroit, Michigan. And I'm so excited to learn more about his journey alongside you all, so I'm going to add him to our live for today. Let's see. There
Hey,
you are. Hi, Matt. How's it going?
it's going great, Brandy. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be talking with you today.
Hey, so am I. This is great. Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Yeah. So I know we'll have some folks jump in and out while we're doing this conversation. So for
Sure.
those who are here already, I'll let them know that if you have questions along the way as me and Matt are talking, if you have questions about industrial design, product design, his journey, being an alum, all those great things, make sure to drop those questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Instagram screen. It's a little question mark in the talk bubble, or in the comments so that we can get your questions answered live, okay? So Matt, your bio is so mysterious. I'm like, what's happening at the intersection of consumer tech and automotive design here in Detroit? I know it's
Sure.
happening in automotive here, but tell me a little bit more about what you're up to these days.
Yeah, right on. I'm a principal industrial designer within Human. Human it's a design agency spun out from Harman. Harman has all these creative teams globally, right? And globally, we're about 250 people between ID, UX, UI, future experiences, aftermarket, automotive, mobility, and consumer products, right? And so I am in a studio that is focused on automotive design. Harman is a house of brands for audio. And so because of that, we are the stewards of these audio brands. And so we have to have quite a lot of expertise in understanding how to communicate brand,
Mm-hmm.
what the brand means, what its heritage is, like where it's coming from, why it exists, why it's great. And then we work to communicate that and execute these brands in an automotive context.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Detroit, our team is industrial design and UI UX, and we're co-located in the same facility, which is where I am right now, in our studio by myself. Because everybody's working from home. But yeah, so in Detroit, there's like 15 of us roughly.
Got you. So could you
Does
give
that
me an
make sense?
idea? Yeah, that makes sense. It makes total sense. But for my
Okay.
high school audience, I want to make sure they're following along with some of the things like UX UI, user experience, user interface. Could you give me an
Oh, sure.
example of
Yeah.
like like a product that is it? So the work that you're doing, because you're talking about how that brand is communicated in these like implications. Is there like something that someone can point to and say like this is the type of work that you're doing as it pertains to the vehicles that Harman is
Yeah,
responsible for?
for sure. So yeah, and I didn't explain when I say I'm at like the intersection of consumer tech and automotive, it's because I see all of our audio brands as consumer technology. So most people that interact with our brands is in a consumer context. So like, you're buying a JBL portable, right? Or a Bluetooth speaker, or I don't know, I'm looking at all this stuff in our studio. You're looking at like a variety of speakers for different contexts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so our goal is to maintain that product experience and the brand promise of a brand like JBL or AKG, maintain that in a mobility context.
Got
So
it.
the person who's listening to JBL on their headphones at home, they go outside, get into their car, that song continues playing, and it is the same like booming bass for JBL or whatever brand experience this needs to be. It's incumbent upon us to maintain that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah, in terms of our expertise, we are heavily in industrial design, and we also globally our UI UX team is also pretty large. UI UX, so user interface and user experience. These always get lumped together for some
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
Maybe not rightfully so,
Yep.
but that's just the nomenclature. That's how
Mm-hmm.
everybody says this expertise. If you think about it, though, UX is user experience,
Mm-hmm.
and I think all design capabilities touch this,
Yep.
right? In industrial design, we have to learn about ergonomics and just fundamental affordances in products and how people interact with things, and what is the experience that you want to give to somebody when they are interacting with a product or a brand or a service or any
Mm-hmm.
of these things. So yeah, the user experience is kind of a wider. I don't think it's not just in user interface, right?
Yep.
User interface is if you're designing for a screen. Well, not always, but in our case, they're
Yeah.
designing for displays. Displays of all
Mm-hmm.
sizes, whether it's a TV or it's the little screen in your vehicle. For our team, it's mostly designing for in-vehicle displays, which are becoming more and more, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's displays now that are in the next 10 years, your car is going to be filled with a myriad of displays um, that give you all sorts of contextual information when you need it. So there's less input from your side, and things are just being shown to you as you need it. That's kind of like the goal, in my opinion.
That's so exciting. One thing that I'm really, I want to say passionate about, because I feel like passion denotes that I'm doing things in this field. But one thing that I'm heavily interested in is like mobility in the future of how we will interact with vehicles, because it's changing rapidly
Yeah,
today.
it
But
sure is.
yeah, it's exciting to think about what interfaces in vehicles will look like, what we'll be doing with our time in vehicles as the nature of driving changes. Do you
Yeah.
have any predictions about what we're to see in the future?
Well, yeah, driving or not driving. Well, I think it's safe to say that the future is electric. I don't think anyone would argue with that statement. Um, I think for us within human, it is nothing but opportunity, because as you are less encumbered by driving, the act of driving, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
You can be productive. You can consume content. You can actually create content. These are things that people do outside of the car already, and there's no reason why being in the car should inhibit any of this behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about how can we enable people in this future mobility context to do things that they've never done before in a car in a seamless way.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't feel like you have to interact, and it doesn't feel like you have to put a ton of effort into achieving this goal, right? It should be as seamless and easy to do in the car as it is in any other context, in your house or in your studio, right? So I think we're going to see this convergence of the context for how we create and consume, being at home or being in the vehicle, are going to start to converge, I think. And it will be a singular experience where the things that you're doing outside of the car will seamlessly happen when you're inside of the car. I think also, who did I hear say this? It was Elon Musk was talking about how all input is error. So to characterize that, like if I have to press a button or if
Mm-hmm.
I have to input something with my voice or
Mm-hmm.
make a selection, that is the system not knowing what I want,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the goal, I think the high level goal is that we get to a place of contextual awareness
Mm-hmm.
where the system, the vehicle, whatever you are in, knows where you want to go, who you want to be with, what you want to listen to, all of these things that currently we have to input into or create a profile or whatever this
Mm-hmm.
is. Um, the idea would be that it's seamless and you get in and uh, it knows how to behave.
Mm-hmm. I feel
Those
like
are a
on
few
one
things.
hand that sounds super exciting, and on another hand it sounds like an episode of Black Mirror.
Well, you are 100% correct, and that to me is like is something we have to be aware of, especially as designers, right? We are the ones
Mm-hmm.
curating how people interact with the worlds around them. Not to be self-aggrandizing in what a designer really does, but like we shape the world through understanding user behavior and user need, and we create things that people interact with, which includes vehicles or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so if and so knowing how if people are technologically if they're averse to tech because it's impeding upon their privacy or personal liberties in some way, that's something that we have to be very sensitive to and design the systems to work to I don't
Like
know,
to
work
account
around
for
that.
that. Yeah.
To account for that, yeah, exactly. That's you know, I'm fully with you that I don't know if I want more technology in my life, um, but I don't know that you can stop technology, right? And the advancement of life as we know
Yeah,
it.
I'm somewhere in the middle. I love the idea of tech developing in such a way where it seamlessly aids us in the way that we want to live our lives. But
Right.
also, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
without like jeopardizing our liberties and privacy, those things.
Well,
So,
yeah,
okay.
because if you get into the car and it knows exactly what you want and everything about you, how to behave, where is it getting this information from? And and did you give permission for it to have this information? You know, and
Mm-hmm.
this is a lot of the privacy discussion that you see back and forth between Tim Cook and Mark Zuckerberg, right? Where Tim
Mm-hmm.
Cook is saying, no, we want to give people the opportunity to have complete and total privacy over their data and to not be marketed to if they don't want that to happen and be tracked across all these platforms. And Mark Zuckerberg is um, not a fan of this opinion because it affects a lot of the work that he does, right?
Mm-hmm. So speaking of work that folks do, I'd love to know a little bit more about some of the other things that you've been able to work on as an industrial designer in your career. What are some of the other, obviously you have the work that you're doing in human work and with Harman and Human now,
Mm-hmm.
but like what are some of the other
Yeah,
things you've been able to do in your
sure. Man, one of my most favorite projects that always sticks out to me was that Strang Design in Chicago. This was like I had just left Garmin, and I accepted this offer at Strang, and they're like this boutique design agency. And
career?
so it was actually a bunch of kids that I knew from school. Um, you know, John Duke and Craig Stover, to name a couple, and many of these are still my friends today. But we Pepsi was like our biggest client at the time. Maybe Whirlpool and KitchenAid and that, but Pepsi was a huge client at the time. That's why I was hired, was to help on this Pepsi project. And do you remember Coke Freestyle? I mean, it's still around,
Like
but
the machine where you can mix all the different things?
yeah, Yeah, flavor.
Hmm.
How can you create some unique flavor like peach Fanta or whatever it is? I say peach Fanta because that's always what I go for. Um, the at the time it was like, okay, what is Pepsi's answer to this? What is the Pepsi model for the Coke Freestyle, and how do they compete? So there was already a team at Strang that had been working on the consumer piece that was like this tall machine that had a beautiful screen and was, beautifully designed. And my job was to work on the design of the crew serve. So like,
Mm.
which is a really unique problem. If you're working at a drive-through and someone in their car has the opportunities to select between like 50 flavors,
Hmm.
how can you speed along that process? How can you design a system where people drive up and they can easily make this very complex drink selection? And how can you then convey the Pepsi brand, which is all about fun and engagement like that? How do you communicate that to the person who's at the drive-through? And it's not just drive-through; it's also like if you're in the restaurant and
Hmm.
the bartender, they're usually shooting soda out of like a gun, into a glass,
Yeah.
and this so whatever. These are all the challenges, and at the time, I was not so versed in actually using user-centered design in my process as a methodology, and now that's like core to my process, of course. But I didn't really know what it was, and so that was also a huge period of learning for me, of how to understand the problem
Hmm.
and how to identify who is this user and to understand their behavior and their wants and their needs at a very deep level, and then to create ideas that would help to solve some of the problems that they're having in this time. So it was an interesting thing to work for a huge brand like Pepsi. I mean,
Hmm.
they're giant. Um, we got to go on a lot of research expeditions. Like we went to this super high-end restaurant to do ice research, where they're called aviary. I don't know if they're still in business in Chicago, but there was like no sign out front. You had to like know somebody. And so we ended up getting in the door. There's probably five of us. And they took us down into their lab because it's like very specialized.
Hmm.
The food is not really food. It's like little,
Oh,
taste
yeah, yeah, yeah.
stuff. It's like this, it's like foie gras with, peach or something like that. I don't know. But so we got into their like basement lab,
Hmm.
and they have all of these methods of creating ice. And so this was us, just researching uh, what are different ways to execute crushed ice in a way that is
Mm.
joyful and really interesting to this user who's going to consume this drink. And it's that level of like detail and attention to the user experience that I don't know, kind of like really shaped my trajectory in terms of my career and how I approached design work after that.
Hmm. That sounds super fun. I know
It was
for
cool.
me, like, with being in high school, I was just like art, creativity, like I like it all.
Yeah,
But the one thing that I've always loved is the design process, like getting to understand the consumer and the nuances of like how to communicate something on behalf of a brand or a client, whomever. Like
right.
that part is so interesting to me. Don't have interest in drawing products or cars or any of those things, which is why I'm not an industrial designer. But like that part of the process is super, super fun and engaging. So I can imagine
Yeah,
how that would be to like dive in deep with that, but then also have your hand in how it's then implemented, which is a whole nother
yeah,
skill set in and of itself.
yeah. If you're
That's
lucky,
awesome.
that doesn't always happen too. Is you spend all this time up front getting to know the user and doing this research and ethnography and getting very intimately aware of this user and their needs, and you develop like empathy. Empathy is the word that we all
Mm-hmm.
strive to achieve,
Mm-hmm.
is feeling for this person so that you can create like the best possible design for them, the best possible experience for them. um, but then, you go through the design process, and some agencies are specialized in parts of the process, and more so than others. We at Streng, we did not have any engineers on staff, so we were very much a front end, what we would
Mm-hmm.
call front end design firm, where you are
Mm-hmm.
deciding, you're figuring out like what to make,
Mm-hmm.
who is the user, and how can we what can we design. So you're doing a lot of research and journey mapping um, and understanding that part of it and creating prototypes. But then that's something at the end of 2.5 years at Streng where I realized like nothing that I had done was on the path to commercialization. Um, and as a designer that's right out of school, you know, I don't know, you're kind of naive, and of course you want your products to be made.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, that happened to me right out of the gate at Garmin. Um, Shout out to Garmin. That's one of the best spots that you can work, I think, right out of school or as an industrial designer, period.
Mm-hmm.
They're just as a tangent, their facilities are totally world class. And the team over there is amazing. That's a really cool place to be if you're a designer. And they have a really cool, I think, product category. So between wearables and all of the outdoor activity stuff is really cool.
Did
Um,
you do any internships before graduating that led you to some of those opportunities, or were most of your design opportunities something that happened after school?
Yeah, so I did. I interned at a couple places. I interned at one place that I can't remember what they were called. Liberator. They were like it was like my sophomore year, and I was just looking to intern somewhere and local. And so I ended up working at this place and doing a bunch of CAD drawings for them. They had this technology that was like creating exhaust pipes for semi trucks that are good at mitigating the sound pollution that these have. I don't know. I had basically spent the summer as a repair welder, so I got to learn how to weld, which was really cool. I had never done that. And then I interned. I spent a lot of time interning with Illuminating Concepts. This is a
Mm-hmm.
lighting design firm in Orchard Lake. Ron Harwood and the people over there are totally cool. That was a great experience. And then right out of school, I interned at Motorola in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of set afire my love for the city of Chicago. That place is amazing, and I got to live right downtown in Motorola subsidized housing, and I roomed with a buddy who also got an internship there, Cole Derby, who is now a director at Whipsaw. Hi to Cole, and it was amazing because it taught me about what it's really like to design for consumer tech, and that
Mm-hmm.
kind of was a nice dovetail into working at Garmin, where that's what they
Mm-hmm.
do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So learning about like I don't know, just learning about how to properly measure things, and and working in millimeters and creating, knowing about product thickness and wall thickness and front case, rear case construction, stuff like that. That you just don't learn it unless you're at a company that's doing that.
Doing that level of work. Yeah, that makes sense. That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're gonna hop in a device of my own creation, my imaginary time
Okay.
machine. We're
Cool.
gonna rewind back to you in high school, Matt, as a young
Oh man.
artist and budding designer. Um, I know it's been some time for folks like us, but when you were in high school, did you know you wanted to be a product designer? What type of art were you making in high school?
No, I was drawing like uh, Calvin and Hobbes and stuff. No, I never like drew cars or anything. I was fascinated by automotive design, um, but I don't think the word design was really even in my vocabulary at that time.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was a musician, and still am, a drummer, and
Ooh.
that was always my focus. I always loved to draw and would like draw pictures for friends and give it to them, and hang it on my in my room. And I always loved art class, but no, like I never saw it as a future because no one ever communicated to me that you can have a career and be creative not necessarily an art career, because art
Mm-hmm.
and design are two very, very different things that should not be
Mm-hmm.
confused. But
Mm-hmm.
I saw friends who were going to CCS when I was in high school, and they were like fine art painters. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I wish that I could paint so that I could go to art school. But I just didn't see an avenue to that, or an avenue to any
Mm-hmm.
successful career. So um, I was still in a band, and we were serious and practiced every night for hours, and, toured a little bit and put out some albums and did that whole thing. And I really thought that was going to be like what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I followed it for a long time. And then I don't know, I think somewhere I was probably like 24. I had gone to Western for 2 years
Mm-hmm.
and took some art classes, but still not aware of industrial design in any way, um, or design as a profession at all, even
Mm-hmm.
graphic design or anything. I still saw it as like crafting or drawing art.
Yep.
So I took these art classes that were, I don't know, it was like charcoal classes, figure drawing type of stuff. And I left Western after 2 years because I still was like aimless, totally aimless. Um, and and I was also like, man, I'm not practicing music. This is weird. So I came back home and continued to play music. And I was like a bartender at the time. So I was like, you know, working and playing music. And I loved it. And I don't know. I could tell there was a kind of a point when I was 24 or 25 where I could tell that the band just was not going to be what I was hoping it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And as happens to a lot of musicians. And so, it's one of those things where you have to take an assessment of what you can offer. And you look at what you're interested in, and you try to like cross reference that with what people need.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was really interested in music. People enjoy music, so that's what I was doing, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's not a viable path, then what else do I do well?
Mm-hmm.
People have always complimented me on how I draw, so maybe there's a way I can draw for a living. And I love cars. Growing up in Detroit, that's just like, I mean,
It's our
pretty
world.
common. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the auto show and everything. So I started taking automotive engineering courses because uh, they called it automotive design in the brochure for Oakland Community College. And I was like, I'll get my start here. I really want to be a car designer, so this is where I should start, which was which was totally not true. But anyway, so I went to this. I went through some engineering courses, and but this is also where I learned CAD,
Mm-hmm.
which is CAD is computer aided design program. So like how you create geometry, how you create any like renderings or anything. So I took those courses, and it was going okay, and I was kind of bored, but it seemed like it was valuable, and uh, and it ended up to be valuable. I think right before I was about to finish and get a certificate, I saw a pamphlet for CCS,
Mm-hmm.
and there was like a snowboard boot model that someone had made, and like a 8th scale car clay model. Whew. And I was like, okay, this
Yeah.
this and it was just like it was like the light bulb, literally. I know
Mm-hmm.
it's so cliche, but like, man, that moment where everything falls into place, and you're like, this is literally just what I want to be doing, period. So I
Mm-hmm.
left. I didn't
You
get
didn't
my
get the
certificate.
certificate.
No, because I was like the meme where the guy is just throwing papers and walking out. That was it. So I could not leave fast enough. I was in these courses with a bunch of older dudes that were engineers, and I was not having any of it. So yeah, so then I went to CCS to find out what I needed to get admitted,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I had to have a portfolio, which I didn't really have. Um, so that's when I started to really research. Okay, what is industrial design? And
Mm-hmm.
this is like 2005,
Mm-hmm.
or 2004. So we weren't as saturated in great informational content online then as we
Mm-hmm.
are today.
Mm-hmm.
Not to age myself, but whatever, that is what it is. And so I again went back to OCC to take a single design class and build my portfolio around the projects that I took in that class. So it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of fine art-ish. I didn't honestly really have much what I would call like design work in there. There was maybe some graphic design in there, but it was a decent portfolio, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whatever, it got me into CCS, so it was good enough. And so yeah, in 2005 I started at CCS, um, and it felt like I had arrived at home. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just, I mean, it clicked perfectly. Like the homework that I had to do was stuff that I wanted to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? If you can find that sweet spot with in your life with whatever you're doing, man, that is the goal. Regardless of how much money you can make doing it, if you can do something that you love, that's and with design, that's I think that's something that I was able to find, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was great. And I will say previously, I was very fortunate to have parents um, who were willing to fund my education. Um, and at Western, they did for 2 years. I wasted their money, and and when it came time to go to CCS, I said, "Listen, thank you for all of your help, but I'm going to pay for this
Mm-hmm.
because I just feel like it's the thing that I should do. I'm like 25 years old. You know what I mean? This one's on me."
Mm-hmm.
And really, it wasn't on me because I got student loans, which I'm paying. But whatever. Um, and what happened when I did that was that I started getting all A's. Um, in high school, I was kind of like a middling student. Middling
Mm-hmm.
meaning like B's, mostly C's, because I wasn't super engaged.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's probably common. Like, at one point, I think my mom had me tested for ADHD and whatever. But I just wasn't super engaged. And I loved sports and I loved drama and I loved art class. Those things where you can
Mm-hmm.
like be active or express yourself. I loved it. And the other
Mm-hmm.
stuff, I could take it or leave it. So, all that to say, um, when I finally found the thing that I should be doing, I attacked it
Mm-hmm.
with, with the energy of a 25-year-old, and did really well in school, and it was very
Mm-hmm.
satisfying to feel that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
I
it's
mean,
kind of an
that's my
indirect path.
whole.
Sorry, go ahead.
I feel like it's indirect, but I feel like it's we all have these varying paths for different reasons, right? They get us to where we need to go eventually. And I know that's why I do the work that I do here in admissions to make sure that students recognize that like this is a viable path. Like if creativity is something
Yeah,
you love, like it's not something that you have to like skirt around. Like you can go directly towards that and wake up
yeah,
doing something you love every day, like feeling energized that you're using the skills that you have that you've developed, but also like the passion that you have to do something every day. Because like
right.
you mentioned, like yeah, you can make a living. We eat, right? As artists and designers, but also like
Yeah,
we devour our lives. Like our lives are awesome because we do what we love every day.
ah, that's
So
so
thank you
well
for that.
put.
The journey that you just shared is so amazing. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Wow. Well, that's nice of you to say. I mean, I feel like we're brought up to you go through school,
Mm-hmm.
and school is like this very regimented, it's designed to spit you out so you can go plug into the machine and get a job and be
Mm-hmm.
reliant on somebody for that job.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not really set up to like follow your individual passions because you would need too many teachers and this, whatever. The system is not set up for that. But
Yep.
and it teaches you that your goal is to make a living. It's not,
Yep.
it isn't to
Make a
pursue the
life.
thing that fires you internally and that gives you life. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that there's two different types of richness there that you really need to listen to and recognize. Um, because being like wealthy, doing something you hate, there's a trade-off there where you're giving up your time to have the money to then go on vacation and do the thing that you really want to be doing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
so it's like, so, you know, and whatever. I don't want to get into like a salary discussion, but like I think there's a lot of ways that you can be creative, especially now with social media and being a content creator in general. Whew, it's never been easier to be a creative person and make your own way and just create, do what
Mm-hmm.
you want to do. You know what I do every day is I kick myself for not starting a YouTube channel like 10 years ago, um,
You and me
where I'm just
both.
doing like drum stuff or something. You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
still may do this. But
It's
yeah, I
never too
guess
late.
yeah, no, it's never too late to be what you could have become. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. So I
Hmm.
want to take a little detour here because what you just shared about your creative journey and finding what felt like home at CCS and finding a way to do this purposeful intersection of the things that you're interested in and passionate about. You talked about like some of the ways in which our education system isn't set up to support it, right? And I know you did a project, and I don't know if it's something that you're currently still working on, that facilitates education for artists,
Hmm.
right? The I Draw company. I know that we didn't talk
Yeah.
a lot about that. Could you speak a little bit about that project and what started that?
Oh man. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, so that that taps directly into my neuroses about learning how to draw cars. Um, like I said, I wanted to draw cars when I was in school, or before even going to CCS. I was like, I'm going to be a car designer, and that's a thing that I'm going to do because I can do what I want to do. And then I got to CCS, and I saw how much better all the kids could draw than I could,
Mm-hmm.
especially the car design kids. Like it's as if they had been drawing since they were like, you know, a newborn. And I, you know, I always drew, but not in the same way. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was evident right away that I was not a candidate because there's like the design community is this big, and then the product design community is this big, and then the car design community is like this big.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be in a actual car designer, you are a like you are within a microcosm of the design world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so specialized and you just have to be really good. And when I started at CCS, I was not good. I needed to be polished. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I got there, but so I went down a product design curriculum. Anyway, um, the iDraw thing happened. I had graduated and I was at Garmin, and I wanted to do a project, like a personal project. You know, I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any kids. I would come home. I have two kids now, but at the time, this is like, I don't know, 2010. Um, I came home from work and I just wanted to sketch or whatever. I wanted to do a project. I wanted to continue to build my portfolio because as a designer, like, if you want to do this, you got to grind, period, um,
Mm-hmm.
to get your name out there. And so, and I say get your name out there because that also ties directly into my point um, of wanting to do your own thing or not be
Mm-hmm.
beholden to someone else for how you live your life or do your whatever, how you do
Mm-hmm.
your day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the more that you create a reputation for yourself, obviously, if if you do a good job doing that, um, then opportunities happen for you. Things
Mm-hmm.
open up for you.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I was thinking about what projects I could do, just something to mess with, and I had just ordered this sketchbook called Fashionary, and this is like it's like a dictionary about fashion, like how to fold fabric and like everything about fashion. And there are these pages with just like um, an outline of a human body that you could sketch your ideas in. and it was, I don't know, I'd never seen anything like it. It was totally cool, and it was, I think the company is from Korea. I'm sorry
Mm-hmm.
if I'm wrong, but man, it's beautifully designed. The whole thing is executed like perfectly. Um, and and I thought, man, and I also remembered at CCS going to one of the printers to pick up one of my sketches or something I printed, and I pulled out the paper that was in the printer, and somebody had printed a bunch of like car wheels that were in perspective,
The five wheel.
that they
Yep.
could, yeah, yeah, that they could sketch over. And I was like, wow, what a brilliant idea this person had. They don't have to lay out the perspective every time. That's great. And so these, I don't know, these things just started to like happen where I was like, man, somebody should create a book that is like teaching how to draw. Because there's books that teach you how to draw cars. Obviously, there's like thousands of them, but they all teach like the Scott Robertson books. It's like, look how amazing I am at rendering cars and drawing cars. Like he
Mm-hmm.
does show you how, but I don't know. It's not so interactive. And a lot of times I just put
Mm-hmm.
down those books feeling like, well, shit, I am not going to get to that point. Um,
Yep.
Sorry. Anyway, so all these things started to click together, and I was like, man, I bet you I could create a book that like is inspired from this fashionary thing in the way that it like gives you kind of a background about the business and the whole industry, common
Mm-hmm.
things that you wouldn't know, and then gives
Mm-hmm.
you a playground with which to experiment and ideate easily.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nothing more
Mm-hmm.
intimidating than a white sheet of paper staring you in the face and you don't know where to begin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I called my buddy Adam Hubers, who is he's a lead designer at FCA, I think, at the moment, and RAM, if I'm not mistaken. But he was a close friend at school and still is to this day. And I asked him if this idea had legs because he had
Mm-hmm.
gone through the automotive design curriculum and I didn't. And he was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool. That people would probably take that." So I worked with him to define like how do we teach this?
Mm-hmm.
What do people need to know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, proportion is really important. Perspective is really important. So I started just like designing a book. Like I don't know if I downloaded a book template online and started using InDesign and just like
Start
building
laying it
this,
out.
yeah, building a book file, laying it out with whatever rudimentary graphic design skills I had at the time. And Alibaba, I was like, I know that people buy stuff from China on Alibaba. Eh, I bet we could get I bet we could get it from there. Uh, and so I went on Alibaba and I found all these people that made exactly the sketchbook I wanted, where it's like a moleskin and it has the elastic band and it looks super iconic. And
Uh-oh. Did we lose
sent them
Matt?
the
Some.
art. You can. Oh, am I still here?
Oh, there you go. It froze just for a little bit. But you
Oh,
contacted them, you sent them the art, and then what happened?
yeah. So I sent the art, and they sent me samples. And you could tell right away that like which one was the one that we should go with.
Mm-hmm.
And Beijing Light Stationery was the one that to this day is my supplier of books. They're great. Their quality is amazing. They're super communicative. Um, totally cool. Anyway, and that was just through Alibaba. Um, so I don't know, it probably took us like 4 or 5 months to put together the whole thing because I'd never done it before. And we got our first test books. We sent the files to China and said, "Can you send us some prototypes?" And this is obviously all just self-funded at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, because you know I have questions about funding. There's a funny story there.
yeah, there's a lot we can talk about there too. And yeah, so we got samples, and then I decided we should do a Kickstarter because at that time, Scott Wilson of Minimal had recently launched that the watch for the iPod Nano.
Mm.
Um, God, what was that thing called? Lunatic. And he created a whole house brand out of that thing. That guy's great. But and so I was like, wow, he did a Kickstarter. Okay. Oh wow, I have a hard stop in 15 minutes. Just FYI. Sorry.
We do too, because Instagram cuts us off at an hour, so it's
Oh,
perfect.
okay, okay. Anyway, so I'll try to get to this to the point. Um, and he got all over the
Hmm.
blogs at the time, um, with his Kickstarter because they made like $1 million, and I was like, man, he raised all this money for this thing. I'm sure that we could raise the money to do this.
Hmm.
And I was like, how much are we going to need? I don't know. Like, how many books do we want to make? Let's try to do 1,000 book run for our first
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
And I remember taking it around at Garmin and showing them like this prototype that I had, and I was like, "What do you think? Is this cool?" People were like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool." And I was like, "I'm going to ask for 10 grand to get this." They were like, 10 grand? What? Are you serious? And I was like, "Well, yeah, I don't know. That's what we need." And so, we made the video and everything on a shoestring budget and just filmed ourselves with our phones talking about it. And we got funded because I don't know, some car blogs picked it up, and we ended up making like 50 grand off of
Did you
that first
feel the
one.
need because you
Yeah,
had yourself?
yeah,
Because you're a product designer and designed a product that had a need.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that is also a cautionary tale to people, because then Adam and I kind of got into it a little bit, and had to go through some legalities that we hadn't really planned on doing because we're friends. But man, when you add money to it, and especially like anything over 10 grand, starts to become a pretty serious thing. And
Hmm.
so I would say, if you're thinking of doing this, plan what happens if you are successful.
Hmm.
Plan it out very strategically and in detail,
Hmm.
because things were not great for a little bit, and I'm glad that we got past it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then once that was done, it was like, wow, so this is a format that works. Why don't I reach out to my buddy Ryan Stegman, who is continues to this day to be a pretty well known Marvel artist?
Hmm.
Why don't we do I Draw Comics? And that was the one that like kind of shot us, pretty far. Um, and and but I should say, a lot of these, it looks like you're making a lot, but in the end, after you pay for shipping and product and all this other stuff that you end up doing, it's not as much as you think. Uh, and so, but it was still great. I mean, it's still, and so then we did a shoes book. We've had somebody totally rip us off, a CCS guy who I won't mention.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, yeah, pretty unfortunate. But I wasn't able to pursue any legal action on that one. So what are you going to do? Yeah. So, and we just put out I Draw Motos, which
Yeah,
is,
we talked to Muramuchi not too long ago.
oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. 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 So, man, he's great. He is about as good as you can get, for that book. He's like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean, Yoda, in terms of how to put a book like that out. So that was huge, and that was a good one for us. So now we have 5 titles. Uh, Not sure what's next, honestly.
It's just exciting to see that you took something that was an interest of yours and a skill set of yours that you wanted to develop, and in your own process came up with an idea and created really a platform that allows other artists, designers, illustrators to do what you've been able to do, right? Pursue that interest in strengthening your skills for art or design,
Yeah,
so that you can become, you can. I've seen students who use those sketchbooks and then come to CCS,
that's great.
So you're doing the good work here with that. So I know you have a hard stop in a few minutes. So I want to ask one last question before we wrap up our live today.
Sure.
And it's my favorite question of every live. If you were able to get in your own imaginary time machine and go back to your high school self and give yourself any advice, knowing all the things you know now, with this amazing journey that you've had, what advice would you give yourself about pursuing your creativity?
Oh, about pursuing my creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I was gonna say I would tell myself to invest in Bitcoin. um,
That's a good one.
no, to be honest with you, I wouldn't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though I came into design a little bit late, I feel like where I've landed is pretty great. Human is about as good as you can get in terms of an agency that values its creativity and values its team, and
Mm-hmm.
has really interesting projects. So I feel very fortunate for that. Um, And but in terms of following my creativity, I think I would just say draw more. Get a
Mm-hmm.
sketchbook, draw more. Draw when you, because at the time it was just like something I did, you know, if somebody asked me to draw something,
Yep.
I would have made it much more of a core part of my identity to
Mm-hmm.
be a creative, like, person who draws. And I would have told myself, if you want to be a car designer, do research about car design, because I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
know. I looked at Motor Trend magazine, you know what I mean? So I would have explained to myself to research and know more about this stuff, and to be
Mm-hmm.
um, just to immerse myself more in creativity, to express myself
Mm-hmm.
more and not be afraid
Mm-hmm.
of it.
Wonderful advice. Matt,
Thank you.
it's been so awesome talking to you today. I feel like I've learned
You
so
too.
much about the industry, the future of it, but also about you and your amazing journey, the work that you've done with iDraw. I know it's game changing for so many students out there, and now that they can hear your journey, I know that you'll continue to change some lives. So I
Hopefully.
appreciate you for joining us for CCS Alumni Live today.
Of course, Brandy. Thank you so much for having me. It was great to chat with you.
Likewise. All right, folks, for those of you who are tuning in, thank you for joining us for CCS Alumni Live this week. Make sure, if you aren't already subscribed to CCS's email list, you subscribe so that you can learn about our upcoming CCS Alumni Live interviews. If you're here following on Instagram, you learned about it 24 hours before, just about. But we will see you all at the next CCS Alumni Live. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you, Matt.
Bye,
Have a good
guys.
week, everyone.
Bye, Brandy. Thanks so
Bye.
much. See you.
Thank you.